Elias Thorne was a creature of habit. Every weekday, precisely at 5 o'clock, he would sign the last document on his immense mahogany desk, lean back in his leather chair, and gaze out at the city sprawling beneath his penthouse office. Today was no different. The pen scratched a final flourish across the quarterly report, the sound crisp in the quiet room. He capped it with a decisive click, his gaze already drifting towards the panoramic window. The city lights were just beginning to prickle the twilight, a testament to his empire, a monument to his relentless ambition. A light tap echoed from the door. Elias frowned. He hadn't scheduled anyone. "Enter," he called, his voice, usually a command, now edged with mild irritation. The door swung open slowly, revealing not his assistant, but a tall young man, perhaps in his late 20s. He carried no briefcase, no portfolio, just stood there, hands clasped loosely in front of him, his posture oddly calm. His eyes, dark and piercing, held a quiet intensity that Elias found instantly unsettling. "Mr. Thorne," the young man began, his voice deep, clear, and perfectly modulated. "My name is Marcus." Elias waved a dismissive hand. "And you are? I'm afraid you have the wrong office. My assistant handles all unscheduled appointments." He reached for the intercom. "I don't think she would have handled this one, Mr. Thorne," Marcus replied, taking a step inside, the door easing shut behind him with a soft click. The sound seemed to resonate, drawing Elias's attention back. There was no aggression in the young man's stance, only an unnerving certainty. "I assure you, I have an excellent assistant," Elias stated, his tone tightening. "Now, state your business, or I'll have to ask you to leave." Marcus looked around the vast office, his gaze lingering on a framed photograph of Elias on a yacht, then on a collection of antique maps. "This office hasn't changed much," he observed, almost to himself. "The layout, the view, it's just as she described it." Elias stiffened. "As who described it?" His irritation was now tinged with a flicker of suspicion. He didn't recognize this young man, yet his manner suggested a familiarity that was deeply unsettling. "A woman who worked here," Marcus continued, turning his full attention back to Elias, his dark eyes unwavering. "Perhaps 25 years ago, she often spoke of this place, the high ceilings, the way the late afternoon sun would hit that particular corner of your desk." Marcus pointed to a spot where a dust motes danced in the fading light. "She said it was the only time you ever seemed to pause, to look like a man instead of a machine." A chill traced Elias's spine. 25 years. A woman. He ran through the names in his mind. Secretaries, junior executives, a few casual encounters. His brow furrowed. "I employ many people, young man. You'll have to be more specific." "Her name was Sarah Jenkins," Marcus stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet each word landed with the weight of a stone. The name hit Elias like a physical blow. Sarah. The name he had buried, forgotten, erased from his carefully constructed history. He felt a sudden, inexplicable tightness in his chest, as if the air had been sucked from the room. His memory, usually a sharp, precise instrument, suddenly flickered, showing him fragments. Sarah, her bright, intelligent eyes, her quiet efficiency, the way her braided hair would sometimes brush his arm when she handed him a document. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "Sarah Jenkins," he repeated, forcing a casual note into his voice. "Yes, I vaguely recall a Sarah. Good employee, I believe. Moved on, if I'm not mistaken." "She moved on all right," Marcus said, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor in his voice now. "She moved on because you fired her." Elias's jaw tightened. "Business decisions are made regularly. People move on. It's the nature of progress." He looked away, staring out the window, hoping to project an image of unshakable authority. But inside, a growing unease churned. "This wasn't a business decision, Mr. Thorne." Marcus's voice cut through his attempted detachment. "This was personal. You fired her the day after she told you she was pregnant." The words hung in the air, a devastating accusation. The perfectly curated calm of Elias Thorne's office shattered. He felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. It had been so long ago. He had buried it so deep. He had convinced himself it never happened, that it was a figment of a different life, a different, less respectable man. He remembered the frantic, desperate phone call. Sarah's voice, small and trembling, saying the words, "I'm pregnant, Elias. It's yours." And his immediate, visceral reaction, panic, pure, unadulterated terror, that his carefully crafted future, his social standing, his impending engagement to a woman from a prominent family, would all crumble. He had arranged a meeting in this very office, late on a Friday evening. He had stood here, by this window, and coldly, systematically, dismantled her life. "Look, I don't recall the specifics," Elias stammered, his voice betraying him, cracking slightly. He clutched the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. "You told her it was a complication," Marcus narrated, his voice gaining a quiet power, as if he were simply stating facts from a historical record. "That she was unprofessional. You said her situation would compromise your reputation, and the company's. You offered her a severance, a pittance really, compared to what you made her lose." Elias closed his eyes for a brief moment. He remembered the look on Sarah's face, the hope, then the confusion, then the utter devastation. Her dark eyes, usually so vibrant, had dulled, filling with tears that she had struggled to hold back. She hadn't yelled, hadn't pleaded. She had simply nodded, taken the envelope, and walked out, her shoulders slumped, her spirit crushed. He had watched her go, a knot of guilt twisting in his stomach, quickly smothered by a wave of relief. He had convinced himself it was for the best, for everyone. He told himself she would be fine. He never looked back. "She wasn't fine, Mr. Thorne," Marcus said, pulling Elias back to the present. His eyes were wide open now, fixed on the younger man. "She lost her job, her home, her sense of security. She had to move back in with her struggling mother. She raised a child alone. A child, Mr. Thorne, who grew up hearing stories of the man who occupied this office, the man who was his father." Elias felt a cold dread seep into his bones. His father. The words echoed in the suddenly silent office. He stared at Marcus, really looked at him. The sharp line of his jaw, the determined set of his mouth, the dark eyes. His eyes, a horrifying, undeniable resemblance began to emerge, subtle at first, then starkly apparent. The same high forehead, the same dark, thick hair. It was like looking at a younger, stronger version of himself, stripped of the layers of arrogance and self-preservation. You're her son?" Elias whispered, the words barely audible. "I am," Marcus confirmed, a flicker of something unreadable, satisfaction, sorrow, passing through his eyes. "My name is Marcus Jenkins, and I'm here because my mother is dying." The air in the room grew heavy, thick with unspoken accusations and decades of buried pain. Elias felt his carefully constructed world tilting on its axis. Dying, Sarah, the woman he had discarded, the mother of this powerful, quiet young man standing before him. "She has an aggressive form of cancer," Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the raw emotion behind his words. "The doctors say it's terminal. There's nothing more they can do, but before she goes, she wants something. Something you owe her. Something you owe me." Elias swallowed hard, his throat dry. What do you want?" he croaked, his voice a shadow of its usual commanding tone. His mind raced, calculating. Was this blackmail? A lawsuit? He had lawyers. He had connections. He was Elias Thorne. "Not money, Mr. Thorne," Marcus stated, as if reading his thoughts. "Though she certainly could have used it over the years. No, this isn't about your fortune. This is about truth. About recognition, about the life you took from her, and the life you ignored." He took another step closer, until he was standing just beyond the edge of Elias's desk. "My mother wants to see you, one last time. She wants you to acknowledge me, her son, as yours. She wants you to look me in the eye, and admit what you did, and what you denied us." Elias flinched. The idea of facing Sarah, broken and dying, after all these years, was unbearable. The thought of admitting his greatest shame, his most callous act, to this son he never knew, was terrifying. He was a man who built empires on denial, on pushing away unpleasant truths. "This is ridiculous," Elias blurted out, trying to reclaim some shred of his old authority. "This is some kind of elaborate scheme. I don't know who you are. I don't owe you anything." Marcus merely looked at him, a faint, sad smile touching his lips. "You can say that, Mr. Thorne, but your eyes betray you, your trembling hands betray you. And the truth, Elias, has a way of finding its way home, no matter how many years you try to keep it locked away." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He laid it carefully on the polished desk, directly in front of Elias. It was a faded photograph. Elias's hand shook as he picked it up. It was Sarah, younger, vibrant, her smile radiating pure joy, and cradled in her arms, a tiny baby, no older than a few months. The baby was looking up at her, a wide, gummy smile on its face, and even then, Elias could see it, the unmistakable resemblance, even in infancy, his own features, miniaturized, innocent. He was looking at himself, 25 years ago, in the arms of a woman he had destroyed. "She carried this picture with her every single day," Marcus said softly, his voice cutting through Elias's shock. "A reminder of what she had, and what she lost, and a promise to herself that one day I would know who my father was, and that you, Mr. Thorne, would know your son." Elias stared at the photograph, then at Marcus. The arrogance had drained from his face, replaced by a profound weariness, a deep-seated fear. The empire he had built, the carefully cultivated image, seemed suddenly fragile, on the verge of collapse. All the power, all the wealth, felt utterly meaningless in the face of this quiet, undeniable truth. "She's at St. Jude's Hospice," Marcus continued, his voice now gentle but firm, like a surgeon delivering a difficult diagnosis. "Room 302. She doesn't have much time. The choice is yours, Mr. Thorne. You can continue to deny the past and live with the consequences of that denial, or you can finally face it, and perhaps, just perhaps, find some shred of peace before it's too late for us all." Marcus turned slowly, his gaze sweeping over the opulent office one last time, as if taking a final inventory of the man who resided within its walls. He paused at the door, his hand on the cool brass handle. "I'll be waiting outside for your answer," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast, suddenly cold room. The door clicked shut, leaving Elias Thorne alone in the twilight, the city lights shimmering mockingly outside his window. The signed quarterly report lay forgotten on his desk. His hand still clutched the faded photograph, the tiny face of a baby, his baby, staring up at him, a silent, powerful accusation that had been 25 years in the making. The ticking of his grandfather clock suddenly seemed impossibly loud, counting down not just the minutes, but the last precious moments of a life that demanded a final, desperate reckoning.